Galley. The Galley is one of the oldest warships ever built, and it shaped naval warfare for thousands of years. Powered primarily by rows of oarsmen, it was fast and maneuverable in calm, shallow waters. Ancient civilizations from Greece to Rome relied on the galley to control the Mediterranean Sea. The most famous version, the trireme, had 3 rows of oars stacked on each side and could reach impressive speeds for its time. Galleys would ram enemy ships head-on using a bronze spike mounted at the bow, splintering hulls and sinking vessels in minutes. They remained in use well into the 1600s, though their dominance gradually faded as wind-powered ships grew larger and more capable on open ocean. Carrack. The Carrack emerged in the 15th century and represented a major shift in how navies thought about sea power. Unlike the galley, it was a sailing ship built for long ocean voyages, with tall sides, multiple decks, and large cargo capacity. Portugal and Spain used carracks extensively during the Age of Exploration, sailing them across the Atlantic and around the coast of Africa. They were armed with cannons mounted along the sides, which introduced a new style of naval combat. Ships no longer needed to crash into each other. They could now fire from a distance. The Carrack was not the most nimble vessel, but its size and range made it a foundation of early colonial power. Galleon. The Galleon evolved from the Carrack and became the dominant warship of the 16th and 17th centuries. It was sleeker and better suited for battle, with a lower profile and a more effective arrangement of cannons along its gun decks. Spain built some of the most powerful galleons in history, using them to transport silver and gold from the Americas back to Europe. England and the Dutch Republic also developed strong galleon fleets, and much of the rivalry between these nations played out at sea. The most famous confrontation involving galleons was the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588, where English ships used superior speed and firepower to dismantle what had seemed like an unstoppable fleet. Ship of the line. The ship of the line was the peak of wooden warship design. It got its name from the tactic of lining up in a column and exchanging broadsides, rows of cannons firing simultaneously at the enemy fleet. These ships could carry anywhere from 64 to over 100 guns across multiple decks, and they were floating fortresses. Building one required enormous national resources, and owning a powerful fleet of them was a measure of a country's strength. The Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, where Admiral Nelson led the British fleet against combined French and Spanish forces, is the most celebrated example of ships of the line in action. After that era, improvements in technology began to make wooden warships obsolete. Frigate. The frigate served a different purpose than the heavy ships of the line. It was faster and lighter, designed for scouting, escorting convoys, and carrying messages between fleets. Frigates were not meant to fight the largest warships directly, but in the right hands they were devastating against smaller vessels and vital to any navy's operations. During the Age of Sail, nations competed intensely to build the fastest frigates. The United States Navy's early history was built on frigates, particularly the USS Constitution, which earned a reputation for being nearly impossible to damage in battle. The concept of the frigate never really disappeared. Modern navies still use ships by that name today, though they look completely different. Ironclad. The Ironclad changed everything. In the mid-1800s, navies began plating their warships with iron armor, making wooden vessels essentially useless in direct combat. The most famous early clash between ironclads happened during the American Civil War, when the USS Monitor and the CSS Virginia met in battle in 1862. Neither ship could seriously damage the other, and the fight ended in a stalemate, but the message was clear. Wooden warships were finished. European powers rapidly began converting their fleets, and the era of iron and steam had begun. The Ironclad was a transitional design, not yet the fully refined warship that would follow, but it marked a permanent turning point in naval history. Battleship. The Battleship was the most powerful surface warship ever built. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, navies were constructing massive steel vessels armed with enormous guns capable of hitting targets miles away. The Dreadnought class, introduced by Britain in 1906, made every existing battleship outdated almost overnight with its all-big gun design and steam turbine propulsion. World War I saw large fleet engagements like the Battle of Jutland, where hundreds of ships faced each other across the North Sea. By World War II, battleships like the Japanese Yamato and the German Bismarck had become symbols of raw naval power. However, the rise of aircraft carriers gradually overtook them, and battleships were retired from most navies by the late 20th century. Aircraft carrier. The aircraft carrier became the center of modern naval power in the 20th century. Rather than relying on its own guns, the carrier projects force through the aircraft it launches, fighters, bombers, and reconnaissance planes that can strike targets hundreds of miles away. The United States Navy was transformed by this concept. especially after the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 demonstrated how vulnerable stationary fleets were to air attack. Carriers became the new core of fleet strategy. Today, the United States operates the largest carriers ever built, nuclear-powered supercarriers capable of deploying dozens of aircraft and remaining at sea for months without resupply. No other type of surface ship commands more strategic influence in the modern world. Submarine. The submarine operates in a completely different dimension from every other warship, beneath the surface, hidden and silent. Early submarine designs appeared in the 19th century, but the vessel came into devastating use during World War I, when German U-boats nearly strangled Britain's supply lines by sinking merchant ships across the Atlantic. World War II saw submarine warfare on a massive scale from both sides. Today's submarines are nuclear-powered in the most advanced navies, able to stay submerged for months and carry ballistic missiles capable of reaching targets across entire continents. The submarine's power comes entirely from concealment. It does not need to be the biggest or fastest ship, it simply needs to remain unseen. Destroyer. The destroyer was originally designed in the late 1800s to hunt and sink torpedo boats, which were fast, small craft that threatened larger warships. Over time, the destroyer's role expanded dramatically. By the Second World War, destroyers were escorting convoys, hunting submarines, laying mines, and supporting amphibious landings. They became one of the most versatile ships in any fleet. Modern destroyers are equipped with radar systems, surface-to-air missiles, anti-submarine weapons, and in some cases land attack cruise missiles. The United States Navy's Arleigh Burke class is among the most capable surface combatants afloat today, and destroyers remain a core part of nearly every major naval force in the world. Cruiser. The cruiser sits between the destroyer and the battleship in terms of size and firepower. Historically, cruisers were used for independent operations, patrolling trade routes, showing the flag in distant waters, and raiding enemy shipping. During both World Wars, cruisers fought in some of the most intense surface engagements of the conflict. The Battle of Guadalcanal in 1942 involved fierce nighttime clashes between American and Japanese cruisers and destroyers. In the Cold War era, cruisers were adapted to carry surface-to-air missiles and serve as fleet defense ships. Today, only a handful of navies still operate cruisers, though Russia and the United States have maintained them as command and missile platforms. Corvette. The Corvette is a small but capable warship, typically used for coastal patrol, anti-submarine work, and protecting littoral waters, the shallow seas close to shore. During the Second World War, corvettes like the Flower class played a vital role in the Battle of the Atlantic, protecting merchant convoys from German U-boats despite being relatively small and uncomfortable vessels to serve aboard. Modern corvettes are compact and fast, and many are equipped with advanced missile systems that make them far more lethal than their size suggests. For smaller nations without the budget to maintain large fleets, a well-armed corvette can be the most effective warship available. Amphibious assault ship. The amphibious assault ship exists to move military forces from sea to shore. It carries troops, vehicles, helicopters, and sometimes landing craft, enabling a navy to project power directly onto land. These vessels became critical during World War II, particularly in the Pacific, where island-hopping campaigns required constant amphibious landings under fire. Modern amphibious assault ships operated by the United States resemble small aircraft carriers in appearance, capable of launching helicopters, tilt-rotor aircraft, and fighter jets. They are designed to put soldiers and equipment ashore quickly, even on contested coastlines, and they remain one of the primary tools of power projection for major military powers. Mine countermeasures vessel. The mine countermeasures vessel does not look intimidating, and it rarely makes headlines, but the work it does is essential. Naval mines, explosives anchored beneath the surface or resting on the seafloor, have sunk more ships since World War II than any other weapon. These specialist ships are built to detect, neutralize, and clear mines from shipping lanes and harbors. They are constructed from non-magnetic materials like fiberglass or wood, so they do not trigger the magnetic sensors on the mines they hunt. Crews use sonar, remotely operated underwater vehicles, and trained divers to locate and disable each one. Without these vessels, entire ports and sea routes can be rendered unusable. Patrol boat. The patrol boat is the smallest vessel commonly considered a warship, and it operates where larger ships cannot easily go: rivers, harbors, shallow coastal waters, and island chains. During the Vietnam War, the United States Navy ran extensive river patrol operations using small, fast gunboats to intercept enemy supply movements. In modern conflicts, patrol boats armed with missiles and heavy machine guns have proven capable of threatening even much larger vessels. Iran, for example, has invested heavily in fast patrol craft designed to operate in the confined waters of the Persian Gulf. Small, cheap, and difficult to detect on radar at close range, the patrol boat remains a relevant and often underestimated part of naval warfare.